Man, listen, it's been a long day. It's 9 a.m. I forgot you guys can see the time. Alright, it doesn't matter. Anyways, let's do the. Okay, let's go to the video. Alright, okay. So, shading. You know, in art class where you first start shading using a circle. So, maybe we should do that. Just, I'll use that, of course, but let's do like the very basics. So, let's draw a circle. Ta-da! Maybe let's make it a little bigger. There. It's not very perfect, but it's the best circle I can come up with. Well, I cheated. So here's our circle. I hiccuped. I'm sorry. You don't have to do this step, but it does make it a bit easier. You have to figure out the light source, and draw the little sun. So you probably saw a few artists. You've seen artists do this where they'll draw like a little sun to show where the light source is coming from. That does make it a bit easier so that you can keep in mind so you don't accidentally shade certain things in a different direction. So feel free to do that. I'm going to pretend that the light source is coming from there. And let's make this circle. What's my favorite color? My favorite color is pink. So let's make this circle pink. Okay, that's not a very nice pink. Let's do this pink instead. That's my favorite pink. Okay, time for shading. So I usually do cell shade, which is kind of like the harsher, like it doesn't blend. So my shading usually kind of goes like this. Let me do that clipping right there. That's kind of like how my shading goes. But that's not the best shading either, by the way. Listen, this is why I don't make videos about shading. I am so not comfortable with it. So this is how I would shade a circle like that. Of course, I would add a little bit more to it, but I should probably talk about the colors I'm using. This video is everywhere. This is why I tell you. So when it comes to shading, what was I talking about? If you do want to do kind of like a more blending in kind of shading, like it happens like in real life, I recommend you use like a softer brush or maybe a very blendy brush. I do have these two colors or brushes, custom watercolor and oil watercolor brush. They were custom brushes. So I downloaded them somewhere. Let me do that. These only work when it's on the same layer, by the way. So like that. If you want to use these brushes, I'm pretty sure I have a link to them in my custom brush video. But all you gotta do is look up, Google search custom FireAlpaca brushes, and you will find some that are very nice and blendy, and they should help you blend out like this. And then you kind of find like an in-between color to help you blend like that. So that's how you would kind of do like a blendy sort of shading. That I like it like that because it looks rough. You can see the strokes. The strokes. If you want to blend it out even more, it's going to take a little bit more time. You can try to use the blur brush. Where do I have it? But I'm not sure if it would work very well. Let's see. Like that. I personally don't like shading like this. I don't really like blendy stuff. But that looks pretty okay because it's half harsh, half blendy. So you can feel free to use a blur, but I recommend you use a brush that kind of blends it for you and you just work on it so it doesn't look like an airbrush tool, Let's color this little baby in. He's a little baby. A lot of mistakes, or some common mistakes that people make when they first start shading is the colors and the brush. So a brush that I see used very often because they want to have that blendy effect is the airbrush tool. And honestly, it doesn't, it's probably not going to look the best. I've used it, by the way. Don't be like, oh, you're putting down other artists, whatever. Like, yeah, kind of, but I did this all the time too. All of the mistakes that I'm going to tell you about, I've made them myself. So I'm trying to help you guys out by not making the same mistakes that I did, okay? So the airbrush tool, people use it a lot to shade because, I don't know, they think it looks blendy and that's gonna look realistic. Okay, fine. But then they use a color with black in it. So a lot of people shade using the color black, or they shade using like something here. So you see the color box right here. Maybe I can make it, I can't really make it bigger, can I? Okay, great. So this is the color I'm using for her skin right now. It's right over there. A lot of people, when they first start shading, they usually go straight for black, or they go somewhere close to black for shading, right? And I'm gonna tell you, it does not look good. So they'll use the airbrush tool and they'll use black, and then it looks like this. Let me show you how that shading looks. Da 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 da. Ooh, this looks realistic. Let me do this. The clipping tool. Wow, And that's very real. Let's see, let me lower the opacity. Great. Great. Okay, let's do the shading up here. Ah, good. This is how it works. Please don't do this. If you do it, please don't be ashamed. Like I said, I did this too. I'm trying to teach you guys so that you don't have to do this anymore. Do not ever, ever use black for shading unless, if I was going to be shading a color maybe like this. Let's see. Where's my palette? I hit it. Oh god, everything's messed up. Let's say I use a very, very, very dark color such as this. Then maybe, yes, you can use black for shading like that. That is totally fine. It works. But please do not use black for shading for anything else. It doesn't look good. And the same can be said for using white as highlights. White, of course, only works on certain colors for highlights, but you probably want to avoid that as well. So do not use black for shading, ever, please. Okay, it looks bad. I can show you an example again. But when you shade, the color that you want to pick, you want to have it darker, but another thing that makes it look good is it's changing the color itself. Okay, we're going to shade these colors. So for orange, when I have colors that are slightly orangish, the color that I use for shading, okay, do not go darker here and then use that for shading. Oops. Don't do this. It's no good. And then this also, I mean, you can use this because it's slightly better. I mean, it's not like going to black, but it's really dull. So let me show you what I do that makes it look a bit better is instead of going straight down, I change the color a bit. So for orange, I would go for like a more red color. See, I changed it a little bit to red. Let's see how this looks. Ooh, very bright. Of course, you can change the hue and saturation later, but there. Now compare that shading. Of course, the shading is a bit different because it looks different, but compare how it looks. All right, and again, like I said, it might be a little too dark. You can change the opacity. That looks freaking great. That looks freaking gross. So change the color. Don't always go straight down to like a blacker color or like a darker color. It works, but it makes it look dull and bland compared to this, how bright it is. Of course, when you're picking colors, be wary of the theme you're going for, of the palette that you're using, of the atmosphere of the picture. Keep an open mind when choosing colors. For green, when I do shading for green, I usually go for a darker blue, like a blue-green, so maybe like in between there. Let's see. That looks okay, but that's still a bit too dark. Of course, it's too dark, but I usually go for it anyways, and then I adjust the color later. If I change the opacity, that doesn't look too bad. Oh, I really like that. And then for red, I would go for a purpley kind of color. So let's go this, and then kind of move it down a bit. Maybe like that kind of color. That's still light, but like I said, I will adjust it just because it's easier to adjust after shading. So let's see. Hey, there we go. I like that one. I want to keep that one. And then for blue, I go again for a purpley color, but it's more of a purple and not like the, what is that? It's not burgundy, but ooh, I like it. So that's kind of all I have for picking colors, which is don't go for black. Never, ever, ever shade with black. And with the tools that you use, you probably don't want to use the airbrush tool. If you do want something more blended, then, cell shading, which is what I usually do. Like I said, use a brush that is good for blending and not just straight up the airbrush tool or the blur tool. Sometimes it just doesn't look right. Okay. So for skin, with darker skin, did somebody just text me? Oh. So with dark skin, I usually I like to use pinks and purples. Let me do 2 of these, I guess. So let me just and then I'm doing a lot of comparisons for you guys because I need you to see the difference it makes. So for this example, I'm going to show you what other people do, which is like kind of just go for darker color, right? And then I'm going to shade. I usually shade on this side. By default, it's a bad habit I have. I mean, it's not a bad habit, but it makes all my pictures look kind of boring. So I'm going to just shade right here. I'm going to do the light source coming from over here. If the light is coming this way, then shadows are coming this way, so there would be some shadows over here. Alright, so I'm just gonna do very minimal shading just because I I don't really have the time and patience to actually put in a lot of effort for the shading. But I'm going to do this. So this is how some people would pick colors. This does not really look bad. It's not, it's pretty okay. But how I would do it is, let me do that. I usually go for like a purplish, pinkish color. And I'm going to pick this color for now, but I will adjust it just because I know it's probably not going to work out. That doesn't look half bad. Let's see. I do really like this color, but I kind of want it like a more purpley. Ooh, I like that one a lot. No, this one, I like that one a lot. Let's do a comparison, shall we? So side by side comparison, you can see, I don't know, I just like how this looks a lot more. It's more bright. It's more lively. It's more, you'll probably recognize, or not recognize, but you'll remember this shading more than this one. This one is how most people, most artists with more experience use a different tint, I guess, not tint, a different hue for shading than just this. This can get pretty dull pretty quickly, and it's just, I don't know. Maybe this is just my opinion, but most artists will tell you not to just go for a darker color and to kind of change it up a bit. Also, by the way, whoa, my voice just got really weird. Oh god. Also, remember that shading does not have to be boring. You can change your shading up so many different ways. I had this shading technique that I did a while back, but I don't know if I have any examples of it. I really can't find any good examples of the shading technique that I used to do a while back. Oh, this might be it. So this is something I used to do. This is this shading it's very extreme, which is I used to do this. I'm pretty sure I learned that from another artist, but I would do like this. I don't know if it's supposed to give off like that kind of blendy but not really effect, but I would do that. That does not look good. Another thing I used to do that sometimes I'll still do depending on the picture is I'll kind of make it kind of scratchy. So I would just do like that. I still do this. Yeah, I do still do this. And now I remember after doing it, I'm like, oh, wait, this feels really familiar. So sometimes you can do this, make it really cool, depending. Don't go overboard, of course. Ooh, that looks cool. So I do that. Another thing that I do way more often is, let me see if I can I'm going to have to go back a lot so that it's on a separate layer again. Quiet. I usually only do this for skin when I'm shading skin, so it doesn't look so boring, and also because skin is really soft. So after I get my color, so I'm going to go for this color, let me change it back to normal, opacity like that, and then let me change it to the color that I had chosen. What I like to do is I like to use the airbrush tool, which I don't use very often, and I like to go to a more saturated, darker color. So let's see, like that. And then I like to use it on this parts that would be darker. So like up here in the corner, do that. Can you tell? I try not to make it kind of subtle, but there we go, like that. And so it changes. You see, if you use it, the eyedropper tool here, it'll be different from when I use it here. Notice up here, it's not that big of a difference, but you can tell. And sometimes that's also a good way for kind of blending it when you're using cell shading, is getting the skin color using the airbrush like that, just ever so slightly. And again, I usually only do this with skin just because skin is really soft, but I like to do that a lot. So that's another way to make your shading not so boring. So please remember, shading is very important, but also it's okay to kind of experiment with it. Shading can make a huge difference to your art style, by the way, if you try to figure out ways that aren't so popular or overused. Just get the basics down first. Look at his little lip. There he is. That's my son. Whoa, what was that? All right. Oh, this video is a mess. I'm so sorry. This is why I waited so long to make this, because I knew this would happen. I knew that I'm not good at shading and that it's just gonna be a catastrophe. So thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you learned a little something about, at least, like picking the right colors and not going for black. Oh, something else. Remember when I said don't use white for highlights? I still kind of stick by that, depending, of course, on the shading or the color you're using. Let's do, if I did white for highlights, like right here, like right on his, right here, that right there, no good. He looks like he's made of plastic. It's gross. So what I would suggest is go for a lighter more saturated. Let's see. I kind of go for maybe like a yellowish. Let's see. And of course, I'm gonna change the color up, of course, because remember, the color that you choose doesn't have to be the final color. You can edit it whenever you want, like that. That's probably a color that I would go for depending on whatever's going on in the background. I might use a completely different color. So there you have it. All right, that's all I've got to say. Thank you so much for watching. I am so sorry if I made this more difficult for you. I was just all over the place today, but I hope that you liked it anyways, and I hope that you continue to support me, and I love you, and I'm very thankful for you, and I hope everything goes good in your life. Alright, thank you for watching. Subscribe, like, show this to your friends or whatever, or don't. Like, that's not that good. Thank you. Okay. Have a good week. Bye. I'm sorry.